What is going on, everyone? And today we are going to be ranking all 6 Final Destination films from the worst to the best. Now, before I get started, I would like to apologise for how inactive I've been. I've just been so busy. I've wanted to make a review on Drop, I wanted to make a review on Sinners, I wanted to make one on Final Destination Bloodlines, but I just haven't had the time. But I have found the time to talk about all of the Final Destination films in one video, and I'm glad to be back doing this. Hopefully, I'll get some more time in the next few weeks to discuss some more new releases. Now, I rewatched all of the Final Destination films leading up to the release of Bloodlines, so they are all very fresh in my mind, and let's just get stuck into it. So, coming in at number 6, the worst film in the franchise, should be a surprise to absolutely no one, is The Final Destination, aka Final Destination 4. This is just an abysmal train wreck from start to finish. Now, you do have a couple of decent parts to it. Like, I think George is a decent character. He's not utilized particularly well, but he's the only one here with some actual meat on his bones, and you see things like his photo of his family, and he's reading an Alcoholics Anonymous book. It kind of just gives a bit of depth to his character. The guy that portrays him does a pretty decent job as well. I'm pretty sure it's the guy that plays Bubba from Forrest Gump. But every time that he was on screen, I was at least able to watch it. And the one kill that doesn't look good at all, but it is memorable, is the pool kill, when he gets sucked down to the bottom of the pool and his guts get sucked through his asshole. It looks horrible, but it's a memorable scene at the very least. Just about everything else in this film is horrendous. And the thing that makes this film so bad is the 3D effects. Like, this is a terrible film all around, but at least when you come to the Final Destination films, you should be promised a bunch of cool kills. But because it was shot in 3D, every single kill looks dreadful. You've got those really goofy ones at the start, like when the engine lands on that chick. You've got the one where the guy is flung back into the fence, and it like splits him into like diamonds or octagons or whatever it is with the fence shape. It all just looks so bad. And even the pool kill, like I mentioned, it just looks like a bunch of CGI goop coming up towards the camera, and that's it. So all of like the reason that you would come to this film, to a Final Destination film, there's nothing here. It's gone. The disaster that opens up the film is one of the worst disasters. In fact, definitively the worst disaster in the entire franchise. Having a NASCAR race go and crash into the crowd just isn't... It doesn't prey on a common fear that we all have, like, a roller coaster going off, or like, driving behind log trucks. Like, those are great scenes because they prey on a fear that real people have. This NASCAR one just seems stupid, and the way the cars like fly into the crowd look horrendous. When they're actually running out and you can see the flames, it literally just looks like green screen smoke and fire. Like, I could do better with this. Again, the reason you come to these films is for cool carnage, cool kills, those cool Rube Goldberg contraptions, and see what the cool disaster is at the start. And this movie just has none of it. And beyond that, the visions that the main character has, like the mini premonitions that he keeps having throughout the film, look like PlayStation 3 cutscenes. They are so bad, so stupid. Like, they just appear out of nowhere. Most of the time, they don't really lead anywhere. I really, really hate every single character aside from George in this film. They are all bad to the point that, like, it's not even fun watching them die, because A, the kills look bad, and B, they don't get a good enough kill to justify how boring and miserable it's been spending the rest of the runtime of the film around them. So it's an unsatisfying experience. It's a boring experience. It brings nothing new to the franchise, and it doesn't even deliver on the bare minimum of cool kills. So The Final Destination, absolute disaster. Hate every second of it. Now, coming in at number 5 might surprise you, actually, because I have the original Final Destination as my pick for the second worst movie of this franchise. I remembered really liking this movie when I first saw it, and I was just expecting to feel the same way on rewatch, but past the opening scene, I really found this to be such a lackluster experience. Now, as for what I do like, I think the premise is terrific. It's still iconic, it still holds up. I just love that idea of a person having a vision of the future where him and his friends are in a massive disaster. He's realizes the plane's going to explode. He gets him and his friends all off the plane. Lo and behold, the plane does actually end up exploding, and because they were all supposed to die in the plane explosion, death comes back to pick them off one by one in a series of awesomely fucked up ways. It's such a cool premise, and seeing as the rest of the franchise pretty much followed that exact kind of premise with some twists and turns here and there, it shows how effective it is as a concept. The fact that it actually still holds up and bears scrutiny and is used in today's formula. With that being said, I think that the concept of this first movie is far more interesting than the movie actually ends up being. And I was surprised when rewatching it because I actually only realized how tame this movie is. Like, none of the kills are really all that impressive or interesting. Like, you go to these films for the, bloody horror set pieces where these Rube Goldberg contraptions set up by Death himself actually come and pick the characters off one by one. And this movie kind of just doesn't really have that. Like, there is some parts, like, for example, the teacher when she has the vodka in the jug, or the mug, I should say, and it all ends up leading to a fire starting, and she dies in the fire, and then the knives fall. Like, that's a fun kill. I think the kill with the clothesline in the bathroom, as stupid as it is kind of fun. But every other kill is kind of just whatever. Like, you have the one guy being decapitated by the whatever the hell the piece of metal is that gets knocked by the train as it goes past. You have the final one where the sign basically falls and just hits the guy before it cuts to black. I don't know. I just thought that the kills were very lackluster, generic, and not at all what the reputation of the franchise would suggest. The characters are all flat as hell. They've got basically one distinct trait each. You've got the main character, Alex, who is just super paranoid. You have the dick of a jock. You have the nerd. You have the little shit stirrer. You kind of had the weird outcast girl. It's just all like ticking the boxes of bland teenage stereotypes. And their relationships throughout the movie develop so bizarrely. Like, it feels like, well, doesn't just feel like, it is the case. Scenes were cut out from the film. The film was hacked up in production, and test screenings were poorly received, so things were changed around and stuff, and you can feel it. You can feel where there are pieces of character development, like, that were in the film originally, just removed. And the original intentions of the characters and the way they were going to end up, like Clear Rivers and Alex, were going to end up being a thing, but they just kind of don't really. So when you're watching it, there's suggestions that they're going to be in a relationship, and then there's not, and then they go back, and then there is, and then there kind of isn't, and then there is again, and it's a mess. It really is a mess how these characters interact with each other. And another thing too is how Carter is actually friends with them all at the end. Like, he was the biggest dick and he hated everyone else in this film. But for some reason, he's like good friends with them now at the end, even though it's only been a couple of months. And past all the poor character work where there is so clearly pieces of the story and pieces of character development missing, the film never feels like it reaches a proper crescendo. And this is actually a recurring theme throughout pretty much all of the films, except for a couple of them, where you come towards the third act and you're kind of waiting for this big third act showdown almost with Death. They're going to have some plan to cheat it or evade it, or Death is finally going to catch up. And they always just end up going out on a whimper. So, and this film is no exception. It really does just go out on a whimper before that final scene in Paris. And it's just like, okay. So anyway, Final Destination, I'm glad it was successful enough to spawn a franchise, and it has its moments, I suppose, but it's just a relatively horror experience. Coming in at number 4, we have Final Destination 2. Now, let me just get this out of the way. The opening disaster with the log truck is one of the greatest horror set pieces of all time. No doubt about it. It scarred an entire generation of people. They, like, even me, I wasn't born around then or anything like that. I didn't see this at a young age, but I cannot drive on a highway behind a log truck because I just think of this movie. That idea of the logs coming out and just smashing you through your windscreen window it's such a genius idea to have in a Final Destination film, because it really is just a fear that everyone has, and to see it actually play out on screen in such an effective manner, it's incredible. This film also improves upon the gore factor from the first film, whereas the first film, as I said, is actually surprisingly tame. This one really goes for a lot of bloody, gory kills. There's more of them as well, so you kind of get what you pay for a bit more here. So the reasons why I prefer this slightly over the first is just because of that, because of the carnage. It just gives me a little bit more of what I want, and the opening set piece is just incredible. That being said, the acting, while it wasn't particularly good in the first, it is so much worse in this movie. The lead, AJ Cook, my God, she is bad. And you have pretty much everyone else. You have this weird 15-year-old kid who's got all these weird lines of dialogue. Like, he says something about being molested by the dentist to his mum, and it's just like, everything is so wrong in this movie. You have that one crackhead that's walking around and shoving dog shit covered shoes into people's faces. It's a horrible cast of characters, and thankfully most of them die in really cool ways, but it's just, they're not fun to spend time with, and it's not even like they're just boring to spend time with. They're actually quite irritating to spend time with when they're not being killed. I really don't like the way this film treats Clear Rivers. It kind of just shoves her off to the side for most of the film, like she's just a supporting character, not actually a returning character. And then it just kills her very unceremoniously towards the end. I really didn't like that. And I also really don't like the way we get told of Alex Browning's death, where you just see this tiny little photo of a body face down and a brick next to it. It's just like, are you fucking serious? That's what you're gonna do? That? Any of the new concepts that are brought in are either really stupid or just completely pointless. Like, the idea that a baby bringing new life into the world will stop death's curse. I was like, okay, well, that's kind of... Let's just see where this goes. And then all of a sudden it's like, actually, no, never mind. The pregnant chick who was supposedly in the disaster, the log truck disaster, and was supposedly killed in the log truck disaster, actually was never originally meant to die. So whether the baby will end death's curse, it doesn't matter. We've spent the last 20 minutes talking about that, but in the end, it just all led to a dead end. So it just all ends up being really pointless and goes nowhere, and I really don't like how AJ Cook's character has all these stupid visions, like the one where all of a sudden after she realizes that, oh my god, a baby, new life, defeats death, she just stands there and goes, oh wait, sorry, she was never supposed to die. Then she has all these other weird visions about, like, this nurse trying to kill the baby, or the chick with the baby or whatever, and it all leads to nowhere. It's just a bunch of new ideas that are just thrown in and uninteresting at all. And then there's other things about death maybe working backwards, and it's just a bunch of gobbledygook. And once again, it never feels like it reaches a proper climax. It just kind of peters out. So Final Destination 2 is watchable. It's got some good carnage, some good kills here and there, but overall it's just pretty... Coming in at number 3 is Final Destination 3, and this has one of my favourite ideas in any of these films, and that's the fact that Mary Elizabeth Winstead's character, the lead character, is a photographer, and just before the disaster happened, she's taken photos of all of her friends, and in these photos is a hidden little omen that will hint at how these friends are going to die if they escape from the roller coaster. So you've got one guy who's like got a fan behind his head, and he ends up getting, like, his head chopped up by this massive fan. You've got another one where there's a guy who has, like, these knives above his head, and it's just like, whoa, what's going to happen there? Does that end up leading, is he going to get stabbed? Is a bunch of knives going to drop on his head and kill him? And the knives end up actually just being like, they cut some weights and squash his head. So I really love the omens. Like, you're kind of like looking at them and you're trying to pick out what their fate is going to be. I think that creates a really engaging watch. And again, like Final Destination 2, it just cranks up the carnage and the kills. The tanning bed kill is an absolute all-timer, and it features the funniest match cut ever when it goes from the twin tanning beds next to each other to the coffins right next to each other. That always gets a good laugh out of me. I think the roller coaster disaster is fantastic. I've never actually been on a roller coaster, but I don't intend to anytime soon, and this movie certainly makes me think, yeah, I don't really need to. But the characters in this film go from being boring in the first, annoying in the second, to absolutely despicable in the third. Now, I think Mary Elizabeth Winstead does an okay job at some points in the film, especially when she has to be more vulnerable with her sister. I think that's a really good scene, and she does a good job. But all of the dialogue, like, is so unnaturally spoken because it doesn't sound like anything a human would say. Like, she mentions like 5 or 6 times in the movie that she's a massive control freak. I'm like, is that your defining trait, that you're a control freak? I don't know. Anyway, everyone else just sucks. You've got that guy who's like been graduated for a long time, but he just goes there to perv on everyone. You've got that, I think it's Ryan Merriman's his name, who does the camera and does the weird flashes, which is just disgusting. And especially when he's supposed to be your co-lead, I don't know how they expected us to like him or want to root for him. You've got the boring, edgy goth couple who are just insufferable. Then you've got the jock who is just borderline evil. Every second of this movie that you have to spend without a kill scene is really insufferable and really just quite unbearable. The reason this film is as high as it is, though, is because there is a much larger amount of the film that is dedicated to just kill scenes than there is to characters. It's not like the first 2 films where it's more just kind of waiting around, waiting for kills to happen. This film is pretty go, go, go with its kills. So that's why I like this one more than the others. And at risk of repeating myself again, it doesn't reach a proper climax. I really don't like how these films just can't reach an ending. They can't get to a satisfying conclusion. But, you know, that's just kind of par for the course of this case. But I still have a decent enough time with this one. I wouldn't really say I particularly like it, but it's one that I would go back to just because it's more of a fast-paced, carnage-filled experience. It's okay. Now, coming in at number 2, this was actually a really difficult decision because my top 2 are basically tied for number 1. And you'll ask me, tomorrow these 2 placements could swap around. But for today, coming in at number 2 is the new dog, Final Destination Bloodlines. Now, the top 2 films are a massive step up from all of the other films. I would actually say that I like these films a lot. I like the top 2 films at all. I wouldn't give a positive review to any of the other films in the franchise, but Final Destination Bloodlines and 5, which we'll obviously get to in a sec, are both really, really solid films. I love the way this one changes the formula up, and the family dynamic is great. I think the idea that all these characters are on death's list, not because they survived a disaster, but because like the grandmother of the family survived a disaster. And because she was never supposed to survive, all of her kids and their grandkids and grandkids after, all of them are cursed as well now. I think that is so cool. I really love that idea, the way it works down the family tree. It'll come up to whoever's been like born first, basically, and it works its way down from oldest to youngest. I think that's a really fun concept, and I'm glad that it does something a bit different to the others. It's not just a bunch of boring teens or boring 20-somethings that all just happen to be thrown together. Because with the family, you actually care for them, and they obviously care for each other a lot more than most of the other characters in the other films would. Like, watching the other films, like the earlier films in the franchise, their friends die or other people die that they know quite well right in front of them, and they just don't give a shit, which is weird. So when I was watching Bloodlines and I realized that they actually made it so that the characters are emotionally impacted by deaths of people around them, most obviously because they're family, I was like, how have none of the other films done that? I really like the fact that it actually adds some emotional weight to the deaths, pardon me. And you actually want them to succeed. You like the characters. You want them to beat death. The kills are some of the best kills in the franchise. They deliver the splattery, gory goods that we all want. The disaster is awesome. I love the disaster of this film. I'm not going to go into any depth with it just because I feel like I just want people to go and watch the film first. I don't want to give away spoilers after it's only been released for like one day or whatever it is. But some great kills, a great disaster. It properly taps into the fear and paranoia of death being all around you, more so than any of the other films in the franchise. As I was saying when I was talking about the first Final Destination film, I said that the premise is way more interesting than the movie itself. And another reason that I forgot to mention why that is the case is because it doesn't tap into that fear of everything possibly being deadly. Like, you don't see like, you know, I don't know, like a loose screw in the roof or something. It's going to come down and jump onto something and flick a switch on the oven. This movie really taps into that paranoia of everything is possibly out to get you. And I love that. I love the fact that it taps into that because that should have been there from the start. Tony Todd's final scene was absolutely spectacular. I'm so glad that he was able to come and not only give his character some resolution, which we've kind of been waiting for from all of the films, but just to be like a really nice and poignant send-off to the man himself, Tony Todd, who sadly died last November. And it was just such a powerful scene. I think it was definitely my favourite scene of the film, and I'm glad to see everyone else is feeling the same way about it. This film actually feels like it reaches a third act and a proper climax, which is good. And it's very, very exciting. Like, it actually really kind of gets you on the edge of your seat as they're racing and trying to outbeat death, like trying to stop death before it catches up with the main characters. I really love that. But still, it's not a complete knockout of the park for me because there are some ideas, sort of like in Final Destination 2, that are introduced and talked about, but are then just never fleshed out or paid off at all. And it ends up just being a bit of a waste of time, and those scenes and those ideas kind of bog the movie down. This movie is nearly 2 hours long, and it really doesn't need to be. The pacing isn't as tight as it should be, so there is quite a lot of time between kills, which most of the time, isn't too bad because you're actually enjoying being with the characters. When the scenes are coming around where it's all these different concepts and stuff, which I won't spoil just in case someone, doesn't want to hear what some of the new ideas are, even though they're never paid off. When it is those scenes where they're talking about the new ideas and new concepts, it just kind of bogs it down. And also, I really, really don't like the final scene of the film. I thought that was a real bummer of a way to end it. I just thought, like, yes, it's the same, it's following the same formula as all of the other films. Every other film ends pretty much like that. But I was like, really? Do we have to do this? Why? It was just, I don't know, just left a bad taste in my mouth. I thought it would have been okay to actually, leave off on a different note. Let's just say that. But overall, I really, really enjoyed Final Destination Bloodlines. Considering the fact that it was co-directed by the guy that gave us Leprechaun Origins, I was shocked with how much of a good time I had with this one. But coming in at number 1, my favorite film in the Final Destination franchise is Final Destination 5. Now, as I said, Final Destination 5 and Bloodlines are basically tied for number 1 because I really, really like both of these films so much. But just for as of now, this one just has the upper hand ever so slightly. And the main reason for that is because of the ending. I really think the way it sticks the landing so perfectly is such a breath of fresh air, because when you're watching all of these films in quick succession and the first 4 films all just go out on a whimper instead of a bang, it's so satisfying to finally have one actually end on a bang and a real memorable note. So the ending of this one, for me, is easily the best ending of the franchise. And it's, as I said, at the moment, it's the reason why it's over Bloodlines, because I just prefer the ending of 5 over the ending of Bloodlines. But they're both great. Anyway, Final Destination 5 has so many great moments. I think the bridge disaster is awesome. It really does kind of tap into that uncomfortable fear of like, what if this bridge isn't sturdy enough? What if when they're doing roadworks on it, it's actually been weakened or whatever? It's quite silly, but it actually looks really good as well. Like, even though a lot of it's just digital, obviously, it looks fantastic. A lot of the kills in the premonition are great. Like that guy that gets covered in the asphalt or whatever it is really wince-inducing. There are so many incredible kills throughout the film. The gymnastics kill is hands and feet down the best kill in the entire franchise. I will never forget watching that for the first time. Holy fucking shit! Final Destination 5 also has the LASIK eye surgery kill, which is actually, I'm not ashamed to admit it, I can't watch it. I can watch almost anything in movies, any gore and stuff like that. The LASIK eye surgery kill, I can't do it. I actually just either have to fast forward or watch through my fingers or my hands. So I find eye gore very effective. Same with the eye vacuum in Saw X and the scene in Talk to Me when the kid gets possessed. Those three scenes that I just cannot watch. Can never watch them. I don't think I'll ever be able to. And it speaks to how effective they are. But aside from that, for the first time in the franchise, it actually gives us characters with goals, with ambitions, and gives you a reason to care about them. Like the main character who wants to be a chef, but he's going to have to move to France for a while to pursue this apprenticeship that he's been looking for, and he's kind of caught between whether he wants to move to France or stay back with his girlfriend who he loves very much. It's very, very actually quite endearing, which I wasn't expecting. But the fact that they give you a reason to care about these characters makes the non-kill scenes very entertaining and enjoyable to watch. I think Discount Tom Cruise has a fantastic arc, and his character work is one of the more standout parts of this film in particular, because by the time you get to the third act, it sort of flips things up a bit, because not only are our main characters trying to evade death, they also have a human villain on their hands to contend with as well. So I think that makes it a really interesting, nice change of pace, and his progression throughout the film is really fascinating to watch. This still isn't a perfect film though. It's really damn good, but I do still have a few issues with it. Most of the humor really does not land whatsoever, especially David Koechner, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. His character, he has one funny gag when he's reading off the names of the employees that died on the bridge accident, but then he starts reading a bunch of names of the employees that are actually still alive. I thought that was really funny. That was hilarious, actually. That's the funniest part in any of these movies. But aside from that scene, I don't find his character to be very funny. I think the dorky computer guy who's just a complete evil scumbag, he's supposed to be funny in an evil way. Like, he's so despicable that it crosses into being funny. He doesn't quite get there for me. He kind of just annoys me. Now, he gets a really great kill, thank God, but every other time we're spending a scene with him, I'm just like, oh, fuck. And the last issue with Final Destination 5 is that some of the kills really don't look very good. Like when Discount Tom Cruise gets speared through the head in the premonition, his face just looks like it goes from his real face to rubber, and it is rough. So it's got its problems, but it's a really solid Final Destination film. As I said, I could see either this one or Bloodlines being number one. They could swap around. They're both fantastic films. I really love them both. And that's all I've got. So please let me know what you thought of this ranking. Do you agree? Do you disagree? What did you think of Final Destination Bloodlines? Let me know in the comments. Give me your ranking of all 6 Final Destination films from the worst to the best. And I will see you all later. Bye.